Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Dennis Lorden. Welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew podcast. Today we have Philip Loughman here with me today. Philip, how are you doing, bud?
I'm good, Dennis. Yourself?
Good. Now, before as we get into the questions and stuff, some people seeing this or seeing the clips might recognize you from a TV show or a certain TV show that we saw on RTE a few years back, Ultimate Hell Week. So Philip is or was an Army Ranger, so massive career in the Army. So we'll be kind of touching aspects of that just to kind of give you a bit of a background in him. So Philip, why do you do what you do?
Right. Well, I suppose looking at a few of your podcasts, Dennis, they all answer this the same way. That's a good question. And look, I suppose at the moment what I'm doing is probably not maybe as interesting. I'm currently just do a bit of part-time private security, and then I coach in a local gym here. I guess I'm doing that at the moment for a bit of purpose, and I suppose like I genuinely do like helping people, whether it be fitness or so, or like I said, look, the security industry is just a part of. It's what I know.
Yeah.
It's kind of from my past. Is what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I did do it full time for like 2 years, So just a lot of travel in it, and kind of had enough of the travel to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So pull back a little bit, still do a bit part time.
Yeah.
And like I said, with the coaching, it's more to have a bit of a purpose. Genuinely like to help people, and giving them tips and from what I've learned, I guess, over my experience and that kind of stuff. I suppose probably what's more interesting is probably what I would have done, I guess, a couple of years back with the Army and the Defence Forces and the 14 years in the Ranger Wing. That kind of way.
And just to bring you way back, so how does it work? So like, is it you go into the Army first and then apply for the Ranger Wing, or what way does that work?
Yeah, so you have to be a member of the Defence Forces. So whether that's Air Corps, Army, or the Maritime, okay?
Yeah.
The Navy service. So yeah, you go to your basic training. I think it's like 6 months. You have 4 months recruit training, your big pass out parade celebrations. Then you do like 2 months of 2 to 3 star platoon. And then you become a basic 3-star soldier or whatever the equivalent rank is within the Air Corps and the Navy,
Yeah.
So after that, then it's up to yourself, really. At any rank, you can apply for the Rangers. They used to have a kind of, they kind of had a thing before where they look for 3 to 5 years of experience and a trip overseas.
Yeah.
That kind of weighed out a bit. Definitely by the time I went anyway,
Yeah.
So you do have some guys they can join straight out of recruit training. Other guys spend a bit longer. Myself, I was in the Army maybe 7 years. Before I joined, 9 years before I went for a Ranger Wing,
And just a question now, before we delve into yourself, right?
Yeah.
What we're seeing, we're obviously in a very different society today. So things are changing, things are evolving. We're probably seeing maybe elements of, I suppose, antisocial behavior with some young people, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, or what are your thoughts would be on if the Irish government brought in maybe a mandatory year service or 2-year service in the Army? Like, how would that shape? Like, how would that shape someone? Do you think, or would it be a waste? Or what do you think?
To turn around and say, right, that there should be mandatory service. I think you're really shaking the hornet's nest if you go down that.
Yeah.
Personally, I think. Yeah. Now, did it do me the world of good? 100%. 100%. Like I look back at I'm looking back, and I suppose it's always easy to look back. Okay?
Yeah.
But I look back at my attitude before I joined the Army, and it wasn't bad, but there were certainly parts of it where, they could have improved.
Yeah.
And definitely with the Army, that helped me, like just like the discipline and accountability and stuff like that, like in that kind of way.
Yeah.
I think the Army can do good for somebody. I genuinely do. It can bring a bit of structure to their lives and it can do good. Is it for everybody? No, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if I go down the road of mandatory, because I just think that you're opening up a whole Pandora's box there, and it's probably different kettle of fish, But if someone was thinking of joining, I would 100% say yes, join, because it'll put a bit of discipline in you. And I don't mean discipline as in a bad way.
Yeah.
Or just, someone's little bit of attitude adjustment, if you want to put it that way, So yeah, I guess that'd be my my best response to that question. Really, you know?
And what was your motivation for going into the army originally?
Well, my dad was in the army for almost 30 years.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
unreal.
just over 30 years. And I would have watched a lot of John Rambo and Commando and all that kind of stuff, always playing with guns, you know. So
Yeah,
I guess I always kind of had that interest.
yeah,
Yeah, that was really it. Like, and I suppose the army was always kind of a goal at some stage. Didn't really know
right.
how to get into it. It was always like at some stage it'll come up, you apply for it and see what happens. But I think at the time there hadn't been a whole lot of recruiting going on, or maybe there was. I just maybe too young, or I wasn't really looking into it so much.
Yeah,
But I don't think there was a lot of recruitment going on. And then I think vaguely for maybe like a year or two, there was like a big burst of recruitment, and I was kind of lucky enough to get it then, I think, you know.
I know. I suppose, like, you obviously saw your dad was in the army, so you would have
Yeah.
had a bit of an insight into what was involved between maybe asking questions or seeing or listening to conversations at home or whatnot. But what was, we say, when you went in, if you can remember now, obviously, what you went into the army the first, few months, what were the initial thoughts? Was like, oh shit, man, this is hard going, or I
Oh,
was like, oh, I love it, man, this is class.
so it's funny, right? A few people have said that to me about your dad was in the army for 30, 31 years. So you must have had an insight, like, and had an idea about cash escorts, 24-hour duties, you know.
Okay.
Dad would have done a couple of trips to the north. I was fairly young at the time. Don't
Yeah.
really remember if I've been honest, I guess, but I know I've recollections of dad being gone for a couple of days and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would think I'd have a pretty good understanding, okay, of what I was going to face.
Yeah.
I remember I get the paper and told, okay, report to Cork on, I think it was the 19th of October, November. And yeah, down for training. So dad came down with me.
Yeah.
And in my mind, we were going down there. We were going to go in. I know, a questionnaire or welcome to the army. There's a
Yeah.
cup of tea, a few biscuits and stuff. And out, chat with dad, you know. And eventually, go away with my father. No, I was
Yeah.
18 at the time, you think I was an adult, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. And geez, when I went down, no, like I remember we went into this conference block, I think it was called, in Cork, done my training in Cork.
Yeah.
And that's the last I seen of my father. Okay.
Okay.
Swear
Right.
to God, yeah. Obviously, until we got home with Ed, or like
Yeah.
2 weeks later. So we go in, and it was funny because Philip Loughman is how my name is spelled and pronounced. But at home in Tipperary, it's Loughman.
Okay.
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 So go by Loughman anyway.
Okay.
So I'm in and they go down to the list of people, and they call out everybody here, right? Bar me. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, am I have to do something wrong here? Like,
Yeah.
you guys are standing there going, okay, anyone here we haven't called out? So I put up my hand, and he goes, what's your name? And I goes, Loughman, Philip Loughman.
Yeah.
Remember, the two guys looked at the clipboard and they looked at each other and looked at me, and he goes, spell it. So I spelled Loughman.
Yeah.
And the response was, that's fucking Loughman. Welcome to the army, you pleb. And I was just like, shit.
That set the tone.
Yeah. So we go outside. I mean, there's a guy barking at us with a big, thick Cork accent,
Yeah.
Irish. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? So it wasn't, I guess it wasn't the introduction I was expecting. I was still looking for
Yeah.
the tea and the biscuits and, the handshakes and,
Yeah.
we look after you. But no, that's not exactly the way it kicked off,
And is it is it a hard lifestyle, like, or not lifestyle, like we say when you're in there, obviously it's well before the Rangers ring, but like, is it hard to adjust to that? Is it like, how do you survive? Are people supportive of each other in there? Is it kind of dog eat dog? What was the kind of experience?
Oh, it is a big culture shock. I mean, like that first night, I remember we had these thing called a room inspection. And I suppose this is where the discipline and accountability starts to kick in. But as an 18-year-old, or even 20-year-old, like whatever, and maybe people are more switched on these days, I don't know, but certainly for me, I didn't look at it at this was the lesson. I looked at it like, why are we getting punished? What do we have to do, like? So
Yeah.
we got our first room inspection. They came in and they were catching the mattresses and, throwing them across the room, catching the runners and all over the place. Like, they had wrecked the room that you had supposedly cleaned. And next one was down doing push-ups, like, And I think I
Yeah.
got to like 5 or 6 push-ups, and I was in a world of hurt. Arms and all were like wobbling, you know.
Yeah.
This guy's roaring and shouting at us, like, and you're just like I think I remember the first night. I think I remember saying to one of the boys, like, only for I was so scared, right? I probably would have tried to leave, get out of the room straight away.
Really?
It was a massive, massive culture shock. Like, I mean, look, like I said, before I joined the army, my attitude probably would have been a bit different to what it is now.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, I would have been staying in bed late at night, getting up late in the morning, you know, like not like mom and dad let me off with everything, but I suppose you'd kind of you wouldn't listen to them sometimes, and then they're not
Yeah.
going to discipline you the way the army was.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like, it was a massive culture shock. You're in stress positions, you're doing push-ups, or like it really was you know, that solid punch in the face on the first night. I remember getting up next morning and you're just standing there going like, what the fuck are we have to sign up for? Like, what's happening here, you know?
Yeah.
And I
I
think
can imagine.
yeah, and I think you just kind of go along with it. Like, you go to lunchtime and see what happens, and you know, you get the dinner and you're kind of seeing what happens. And
Yeah.
little times along the day, you're getting these bits of punishment. But then when you're not getting punished, you're enjoying it. So I don't know whether it's the case of, you know, when they hit you hard, you're enjoying. Well, I won't say enjoying the other part, but you know, when they're not hitting you, you're like, okay, maybe this is not too bad. And
Yeah.
it's kind of that on-off switch, really, you know. But definitely a culture shock for me, anyway. For me, it's definitely a culture shock.
And we'll say, I suppose yourself at the time, right? There obviously must have been a kind of a great sense or a great innate ability, like, to be resilient and determined, because you did stick it out. Like, you made a career out of it within the army, that you didn't give up. Like, was that something you always would have had even before you went into the army, that maybe that kind of sense of determination?
Yeah. Again, I suppose like I wasn't able to pinpoint it as determination back then. Then it's like
Yeah.
I like being good at stuff. I've always liked being good at stuff from a child.
Yeah.
You know, and probably annoyingly sometimes, you know, like if I wasn't good at something, I'd probably keep going out and everything else. So I guess for me with the army, I didn't wake up every day and think I'm going to be determined here and I'm going to be resilient. I probably didn't really understand what resilience was.
Yeah.
To be honest with
Fair
you.
point. Yeah.
I guess it's just more so like a simple thing, like, okay, making a bed block. The bed block was your sheets. You had to fold up your sheets and they'd all come down in a simple little block, corners level and everything else. Like, now, I wasn't doing that to become, you know, the best in the platoon.
Yeah.
But it's just in my head that if I'm doing it, I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be nice, if that makes sense. I wanted to be, I know it sounds stupid, but I wanted to be good at making a bed block.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know?
fair.
And then when it came to marching, like, I wanted to be good at marching. I wanted to be good at weapons handling. So
Yeah.
it wasn't so much that I'm going to be determined here and, you know, keep pushing and keep driving on. I guess it's just the wanting to be good at stuff. And with the army, I guess they kept on hitting you with bits and pieces. So you were never really bored, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the punishment, I mean, I don't know, like at the time, you just kind of let's go a little longer. Let's, you know, if, in a run, if you weren't the last, you weren't too bad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, well, thank fuck I'm not the last person. But they're getting
Yeah.
more aggro back there.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the punishments, I guess it's just kind of like, just try to do 1 or 2 more push-ups. Just trying to stay in that stress position more longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I really had a pure understanding of resilience and determination at the time.
Yeah.
It's more just kind of stick it out if I can.
Do you know what I would say, once you, I suppose you pass out and you're a fully fledged soldier and whatnot, do you still get hit? Do you still get hit with those challenges along the way, similar to what when you were training, or does that kind of ease off, or how does that work?
No, so it's a it's a massive ease off. You know, in recruit training, 2 to 3 star training, like you were marched everywhere. You know, you're told what to do, when to do, how to do it. Like, everything is such a controlled environment. If you finish up, depending on what's going on an average day, if you finished up at, like, we say 7 o'clock, then there's a room inspection by 9 o'clock that evening. Room inspection probably never really goes well, and then you're brought back for a second one and stuff like that. 2 to 3, so that eases off a little bit because you're a bit more advanced and all that kind of stuff. When you become a 3-star soldier, that's when I got moved back to Clonmel.
Okay.
So I put my base to Clonmel because that's where Dad was stationed at the time.
Okay.
And I wanted to try and serve a couple of years with him. So there you'd have your normal parade at like 8:30 or so. Everyone marches out. whatever happens, happens, and then you're headed off. And then within, we say a company, we just say there's 30 people in the company.
Yeah.
Well, 10 to 12 of those people could be employed. So there's certain jobs and tasks within the army barracks that people have to do, whether it's store staff, office staff, or cookhouse staff.
Yeah.
And then the rest of you then would be given jobs on the day.
Yeah.
But once you were given a job, you were told, okay, listen, go over this. The gymnasium has to be tidied up, swept out, mopped, and everything else. But that's it. You were kind of left alone.
Yeah.
2 o'clock, you come back on, and so come over, check the status of the tasks you have to given you, and then might give you something else, or depending how big the job is, you tip away again.
Yeah.
But you're your own person. Like, the freedom you have is just like so much more than what you had in training.
Yeah.
And you'd finish up most days then 4:30 or so. And then that's it. Like, you're back in your own room, you're chilling out. You can go off socializing, go for exercise, whatever you want to do. Like, but that's it. Like, so there's a massive, massive freedom. Massive.
Oh. And what was it like to, I think you serve with your dad, you said, what was it like to be in the same kind of barracks or the same kind of base as your dad then when you got up to Clonmel?
It was cool. Yeah, it genuinely was. Like, I enjoyed it, like, Dad would have had a decent reputation at the time, and a few people always remind me of my father, well, geez, you're half as good as your father, and you're half as good as your father. And I was like, but no, it was. I did. I enjoyed it. Like, I served a couple of years. Like, it wasn't a massive amount, but I served a few years, so it was very good, And even when we went home, then we could, like, we'd still be talking about the same stuff, but I could actually relate to it more.
Yeah.
As opposed to a child listening to the cool stories that Dad was telling me. Now we had the same old, the same old bitching sessions at times, and then, a couple of laughs at stories and funny things that would happen during the day, Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, I have to say now.
Yeah, again, I'd say fond memories and everything else. What brought you then to make the decision you're in the army a number of years, what kind of brought on the decision to kind of apply for the Ranger Wing?
I would have gained interest in recruit training, because you'd hear the stories of these mythical people, like, it's like these people could, like, fucking walk across water and just hover over mountains, like, like, genuinely, it was. And I remember I gained interest, and I remember we took the 3-star. I rang Dad. Had a few beers with him, by the way. I rang Dad,
Yeah.
And said, hey, look, Dad, we're at the passing out as a 3-star, and I'm going up to Clonmel fucking tomorrow, so on and so forth. And I told Dad I wanted to join the Ranger Wing. And I think it's the first time ever my father, I won't say didn't believe in me, like, but he'd always be behind me.
Yeah.
Anything I did, And I remember he just finally goes, I wouldn't buy if I was you.
Okay. Right.
Straight up. And it was okay, left it at that. So I suppose for the next 9 years, there was always a bit of interest there,
Yeah.
And then I suppose a few years into my career, about 2002, I started losing interest in the army. Went rapidly down, like, big time. So so I had a 2-year spell there where, like, it was probably my lowest point within the Defence Forces.
Whoa. Okay.
I crashed the car. Not really to do with it, but just mean I had no mode of transport up and down. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Dad was gone at the time. Dad was retired at the time, so he just had to go out the road and tum. Now, for some reason, I didn't like doing it, so I would just, like, not go to work. And then there'd be exercises, and I'd be going sick off it, like, and it was definitely a 2-year spell there where, as we would say in the army, I became a bird. Like, I was unreliable.
Yeah.
I suppose people didn't really trust me in a way, if I was on duty, you'd have waiting people on the weekend, and if I was on duty on the weekend, like, the waiting people were, 99% of the time expecting to be called in. So I was in a very bad place, I guess. And I remember what was that? I think it was 2004, and we were up to Portlaoise, and there was an incident that happened within the barracks, and everybody kind of laughed, but I was basically the butt of the joke, And I remember thinking to myself, right, my dad's on 31 years in the army here, and I'm really starting to bring his name down,
Yeah.
Which didn't sit well, like.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, okay, well, my dad's name is okay. It's my name. That's that was shit, like.
Yeah.
So I suppose there and then I decided, okay, I kind of need to do something. So 2004, I went off and I applied for an NCO's course. I was lucky to get it, to be honest with you, because like the 2 years previous to that, I hadn't really given anybody a reason to give me a career course, you know?
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to get it. So I got that, passed it. And I suppose over the next 2 years, then between other, weapons instructor courses and PTS courses and all army shoots, competition, all that kind of stuff. Like I was kind of on a 2 year spell where 2 or 3 year spell where things were going well, you know. And I kind of got to a stage where I was like, okay, as much as I'm enjoying where I am in the army, is this it? Like,
Yeah.
Is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
So I guess it goes back to having a purpose. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, look, the only step after this is the Ranger wing. Like, if you're going to be, my thinking was, okay, mine. So I'm not saying anything about anybody who hasn't gone for the Ranger wing or anybody who's in the Ranger wing.
Yeah.
But my thinking was like, if you're going to be in the army, and you're on this path of, you're back up now, you've built your name up again, people trust you, people want to work with you again. Like, well, why not, be part of the best and I guess have a bit more of a purpose, So it was 2006. I decided, okay, let's go for the Ranger wing. I'd rather go and fail than to be sitting in Clonmel Barracks and 10 years later and say, well, I could have, or I could have, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what really kind of drove me, was having the purpose of, I need to do something. I need to have more than what I have at the moment in the army.
Yeah.
And like, the Rangering for me was the place to be if you can be part of the best of what the Irish Army had to offer. Like.
Yeah. And even there, what you said there kind of struck a chord with me. That whole inner dialogue of going, as you said, like in a few years, I could have done this, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Like that's for me, again, my own thing, that was something I was kind of struggling with, say when I was teaching, to move out into what I'm doing now. And I was kind of going, I might be able to do it, but I knew if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it. And it's something I would have lived with forever. Like I said, it would have eaten away at me. Like that could have, it's hard to deal with, like, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, I remember we were down in the NCO's mess in Clonmel there, having a cup of coffee and sitting out in the sun, and we were on a break, by the way, so wink, wink, yeah. But I remember chatting with a guy, and I really looked up to him in the army. Now, when I went for the Ranger wing, he did give me a bit of advice on like hill training and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're sitting outside and we're having a cup of coffee and enjoying the day. And I think at this stage I had mentioned to him about going for the Ranger, because it's not something. Well, at least I don't think it was something that a lot of people would advertise back in the day, because you're going to get the people who won't believe in you. You're going to get the people who are going to be slagging and joking you and all that kind of stuff, And I think maybe a lot of people just decide to go and train on their own until eventually it comes around as to, why is this guy running around the Clonmel Barracks with a fucking 70-pound pack in his back?
Yeah.
That kind
of yeah.
And so I chatted about the Rangering, and they came back to what we were just saying, that this guy, great piece of work, right? Great soldier, everything else, and would have been very fit, and potentially could have passed if he had went.
Yeah.
But it was his words. We were talking in the arrangement. He goes, "Do you know what, Lockie?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I said I can't do it now, is it because of family and life and kids and everything else?" But he goes, "I think if I had went, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think I would have done it."
Yeah.
And then in my head, I think that was my situation there, where I was like, okay, no, I'm definitely going, because as much as I respected the guy, and I still do, I didn't want to be saying that same story to someone else in 5 or 6 years' time, when I currently now was in the frame of mind to, okay, let's have a go off of this, let's see. Yeah. So that was definitely one of the rubber stamps, as they say, as to, okay, you definitely have to do it.
Wow, that's really, really good. And what was so you get into it, and what was the training like compared to what you'd have done previously when you first got into the army? Is it up a level or 2 level, 3 levels? Is it similar enough, or how did they challenge you?
Well, the training is, they had a program. I think the Army Rangering had a program at the time. But to be honest with you, Dennis, like, I kind of knew what I had to do to myself, I knew kind of where my weaknesses were. And I suppose my initial thing was change my attitude, like, because I didn't have NCOs to push me then. Like I was on my own at that stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I talk about discipline and accountability, I guess this was another lesson I kind of learned, and maybe, well, maybe the army taught it, or I taught myself. I don't really know, but it came down to self-discipline and self-accountability.
Okay.
I knew that there was no one going to be there training me for the rangering. I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't self-disciplined as to every day turn up and do my training session, you know, and every day, you know, get your shit together and prep for the next day so that I didn't have an excuse. It's like, oh, and I never packed my bag yesterday, and, you know, I don't have time now to pack my bag and go for a run because I have to go home today. Whereas if I had my shit together from the day before, I was trying to eliminate excuses, you know?
Yeah.
And then once I knew that if I didn't do everything, well, then that was my fault. So I was holding myself accountable.
Yeah.
Then that kind of helped the whole process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was consistency. Like I was just like, okay, you need to run every day, minimum 5K. And that was just the first week or two. Just every day got out, ran 5K. Then eventually built that up to like 10K, brought it back to 5K, started running with weight, started running with combats. Then started introducing like 2 training sessions a day. One would be like a weights session, you know. Other one would then be like circuits, LME circuits and stuff. And then the consistency just grew like that. You know, it was always, I don't know, maybe the progressive overload would be maybe the technical term now. For me, it was just a case of, okay, I can easily run 5K a day. Let's bring it up to 6 or 7K a day. I can easily do 10K a day. Now let's start running with weight, 20 pound, 30 pound, 40 pound.
Yeah.
Start picking different routes, as in hill routes and stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when I say start picking different routes, I only had 1 or 2 routes that I always ran.
Yeah.
Because in my head, the routes would eventually get boring.
Okay.
But because they're boring, that means, you know, I'm putting up with the mental side of it, like, because I said myself in the ranger wing, well, I'm going to be on a stage where I have to be mentally stronger.
Absolutely, yeah.
So instead of changing the route to, you know, activate the senses and all that kind of stuff, I kind of just stuck to the same 2 routes, and just kind of plodded on and tried to get faster each time, or tried to run up hills kind of quicker, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was basic enough training. Looking back, there was nothing really scientific about it, but yeah, that's what I did like.
That's mad, isn't it? And like, I suppose the one thing when we were obviously chatting prior to the podcast and what we talk about, whatnot, the one thing that came to my mind was one word is fear. So obviously now you're in the Ranger wing, you're obviously going to be in dangerous situations. You know, like, how do you deal with the fear of that? Because, you know, if I'm working with athletes, the fear they may have is that maybe poor performance, you know, maybe losing a match. Whereas with yourself, that fear has real life consequences.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been like a lot of situations where I felt like fear. I suppose definitely nervousness.
Okay.
Maybe I won't say anxiety, but like yeah, there's definitely been 1 or 2. There's definitely 1 or 2 moments we say on trips abroad. And there was 1 or 2 situations where you're definitely in a position where, I suppose fear is the wrong word, but you're definitely, your senses are heightened.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I suppose, to be honest with you, then it's like the only thing you can do really in my head was just to think of my training, like, you know.
Yeah.
Think of what you prepare for. Think of what your weapons handling is. Think of where your people are. You know, you're looking at routes in, routes out. You're scanning the area, which is what you're trying to do. You know, and you're just you're trying to keep a cool head. You know, you're just focusing on what the situation is. Okay, what's potentially going to happen here.
Yeah.
If this potentially happens here, well, what's your first protocol? What do you need to do? And that's where you're just checking where your weapon is. You know, you're checking where your own friendlies are. So you have your arcs of fire. You know, you're checking routes where if we do need to, you know, if something does go off here, you know, what way we're running. Okay, we need to clear on the comms, you know, that kind of way. So I suppose it's like an athlete, like, you know, an athlete goes into any kind of a competition or a game, like the only thing they can do is rely on their training.
Yeah, very true.
That's what they train for.
Yeah.
Now I know it's a different circumstance, but that's what we train for.
Yeah.
You know, we train for hostile activity. We train for contacts. You know, we train for, you know, dangerous situations. And like, I suppose that's when you have to focus in and just remember, okay, listen, this is what we've done. This is what we trained for. Because you can't let the fear in. If the fear gets in, I suppose it can potentially overwhelm you. And if it does overwhelm you, well, then you're now the weakest link in the chain.
Absolutely.
And that, that's just bad news for everybody involved in a certain degree.
And were you, would say, is the rangering working in certain teams? Like, were you with a team for your full career, or is it like various missions and just people are picked at random and you kind of go together? How does it work?
Yeah, no. So there was you have there's like 3 platoons in there. So you would have, we say, the divers, parachuters, and then you have snipers, and then within that you have certain teams. So when I went in, I wanted to be part of the parachute platoon, and that's
class.
That's the platoon I became part. And
yeah, perfect. Have you? And I just paused it, so it's fine.
Good.
Yeah, all good. So you were saying you became into the parachutes.
Yeah, so when I joined the army, or when I joined the rangering, I had a fairly hectic start, I guess. Joined up, passed out the ranger training, and then a couple of months later, we practically started training for Chad.
Oh.
We done a trip to Chad. We came back. We had maybe a month off, and then it was straight over to Spain for parachute training. Got the parachute training course back to Ireland, and then went straight into military parachute, which is basically jumping with bigger parachutes, and you have your full pack attached to the front with your weapons attached and all your kind of frontline ammunition and stuff.
That's mad. Wow.
And yeah, it was a bit of a shock factor, to be honest with you, at times.
And would the Irish Rangers then train with different countries' special forces, like Navy SEALs in America, or whatever else? Or is it
yeah, they would. They touch base. They would touch base with other different nationalities and other different special forces and stuff. Training programs, and then just like touching base on what other people's tactics are, and because everything is evolving. It always does.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would be in touch with other countries and nationalities across the world.
That's class. And do you miss it?
A little bit. Like, I definitely miss the people in there, and the guys and the mates a lot more than the actual job.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. It was 14 years. It was brilliant. Had fantastic times in there.
Yeah.
But I think everything has a shelf life.
Yeah.
And there's just times where you're kind of, okay, look, it will take up a lot of your time. It really will, and you have to be, to me, I think it's a job where you have to be fully committed to, because it's not something that you can half-arse,
Yeah.
And I guess it just comes at stage with everybody where it's a case of, okay, you know what, I don't know if I'm happy to continue the full commitment.
Yeah.
So at that stage, then I stepped out from the teams for maybe a year or so, and yeah, looking back now, that was probably the beginning of the end, that kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're in there, it's nice to be in there and be part of the teams, because it's what you joined the unit for.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with stepping out from the teams and going into, the training or the ops or whatever part there is. I guess for me though, once I stepped out of the teams, I guess it comes back to maybe not feeling like I had that purpose anymore. Now, I could have easily went back in, but I also knew that, I'm just not happy to give it the amount of time that it requires.
Yeah.
So I think that was in my head. I kind of knew maybe 12 months before I went that, I think my time could be coming to an end in the Ranger Wing.
And just for if you say all your experience, Army, Ranger Wing, what you're doing now, what would you say are the 3 key pillars of high performance?
Oh, right. 3 key pillars. I think the first one is probably the obvious one, which is consistency.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what program you're given, or regardless of what you're training for, if you don't have consistency, well, then you really have nothing. I would say do the small things right.
Yeah.
It's something we would have went by in the special forces, and it's even something I kind of still put in place now in my own head. Like, in my head, I kind of think like that. I would say self-discipline brings structure, and structure brings progress.
I like that.
And for me, I need that. If
Yeah.
I don't implement self-discipline to bring structure, well, then I'm not going to get progress.
Yeah.
And then self-accountability holds those three together.
Yeah.
You know, and when I say discipline, I don't mean like military discipline. You know, it's literally a case of you're going training tomorrow, but you have a 9 to 5 job, but then get your gear ready tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, pack your food. You
Yeah.
know, oh, we could have a match on Friday. If you have kids, well, let's start looking for a babysitter up by Monday. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then in the army, would always say do the little things right. So to me, that's the little things.
Yeah.
You know, consistency. Do the little things right. The big things will follow. You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like keep moving forward. I know it sounds probably corny and probably fucking no, it's very cliche, like, but like there was times in the army when I was training for the rangering, and I'd be going up a mountain or doing a hill circuit or something like, and I'd have this certain time frame in my mind. But like within 20 minutes into the run, like I just feel like shit, no energy. I'm like, okay, well this time frame is just not fucking happening.
Yeah.
So in my head, it's like, well, then change your goal. Now
Yeah.
you're just going to complete it without stopping.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Adaptability.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, well then that's it. That's your small goal. That's your little that's your target now. Stick on that. And I knew that as long as I didn't just stop, well then I was still going forward. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
100%.
making the gains I was making, but in the army rangement, you're not always going to be fresh.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't stop, you're still going forward. Maybe not the pace you want to be, but you're still going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, maybe consistency, do the small things right, the big things will follow. And yeah, just once you keep moving, once you don't stop, you're still moving forward.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And the other thing I was thinking of, right, is accountability. So you've kind of talked about self-accountability. And it was the question I'm asking might never even pop up, right? But in terms of, we'd say again with the Ranger Wing, if I'm part of the team and I'm acting the bollocks, is that an environment where you can call out other people's poor behavior because it can affect, could be affect for safety, performance of the group? Or
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It was something I really liked about the Ranger Wing. Like there's never an issue with making a mistake in the Ranger. Okay, it happens.
Yeah.
Where our issue is when you don't learn from that mistake.
Yeah.
And we would say that to people during the initial training phase. My day was called selection course, then skills course.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's mod 1 to, I'm going to say maybe mod 5 or mod 6. Okay. But you're a student, so you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. And you learn from those mistakes. But then you get into the Army Ranger Wing and you're now part of a team where you have experienced Rangers. And they say you're going down and you're going doing, like CQB or house clearances. People make mistakes. You're working at such a high intensity that you're making a mistake, and that's why we call it go slow and smooth is fast. Or you walk through rooms pure slow, everything else, because you want to get the drills right. So making a mistake is not an issue. Okay, it's learning from it. But it's definitely a place where like there is no bones about being called out.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me. There's the amount of times been told, Lockie, what the fuck were you thinking there? I goes, boys, my bad, sorry. Come on, pull your head out your arse.
Yeah.
But in saying that, it's also a place that I really liked was that if people did fuck up, it was almost a badge of honor to actually put your hand up and say, no, guys, that was me.
Yeah.
I fucked up there. My bad. And it was great because you had that trust in your team.
Yeah.
You knew if something went wrong, you knew someone would put their hand up and say, I did that. I did that wrong.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, now I can trust my team that one, if they do fuck up, they're going to tell me.
Yeah.
So we can look at this again and, kind of maybe rehatch it or replan it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, 100%. Like, I mean, look, it's a bunch of alphas. If you make a mistake, you're definitely being told it.
Yeah.
But it was an area where people were happy to point the fingers at them and say, no, that was my bad, or I didn't bring this, that kind of way. So I suppose it brought massive trust into your team, which is a big thing, especially when you're dealing with like weapons, ammunition, and close
Absolutely.
quarter shooting and stuff like it. If you have that trust in your team, it's a phenomenal bonus for us.
And there's we can move on now in a second from rangering, but I just have a question, right? So I love TV shows like SEAL Team or the movies like the Rambos and stuff you talk about. Love it.
Yeah.
Fierce interest in it. I know, especially from my background with psychology, and I'm doing a course at the moment, Red to Blue, and they're kind of talk about how they use it in the military. That we want a blue head where it's calm, cool, in flow, go down, not worried, etc. Right? But how do you deal with the voice, right? So say now you're on a, we'll say, hill, overlooking something that you have to surveil, right? And you're there for hours. Like, how do you maybe not switch off? Like, you might be dying for a piss, like you might be starving, there might be something crawling up your leg. Like, how do you kind of drown out that noise that you're still focused on the job that is a very important job, between safety or between whatever your objective may be?
I guess pride, really, Dennis.
Okay.
Like, it's the job you're in. It's not easy, but like, I suppose one is it's your own pride, and then two is you have to think of your team.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. If you fuck up, or if you decide to be undisciplined in a certain area, okay, it's going to your team's going to pay for it. So we say if I'm in an OP, okay, and we're gathering information and everything else, and I become undisciplined, and you say I stand up to go for a piss, okay, if I'm spotted, it's not just me that I'm fucking up. It's an entire team's position. It's an entire part of a bigger operation. So you just kind of have to like look, we've had these conversations, I've been slapping myself in the face at 3 o'clock in the morning, throwing water on myself, fucking, doing stupid shit, like just basically whopping in the face. Like, but you do what you have to do to try and stay focused and just stay disciplined. And yeah, I guess that's it. Like, you are having these conversations, but then they have to think of it. It's part of a bigger picture. It's not just you. There's a bigger picture here. And if you don't stay switched on, and if you do become undisciplined, like it's the other people you're fucking up. So think of your team, think of the bigger picture. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not always about me or you. No, that kind
of And
it's about other. I think that we're so good on teamwork,
Yeah, that's what I love about it. Like, again, especially in the area, my focus now is in a specific area, so I eat up anything to do with teamwork and cohesion and accountability. So, Kenny, about Ultimate Hell Week.
Okay, which part? Where I was a rat? Or
where, yes. So, can I bring it back, right? So, obviously, myself and my wife, we actually got into it late. So we binge watched a load of it, I think, before maybe the second or third season, right? And I must say, we loved it. And I'd be, now look, I'd be kind of half messing, but I'd love to sit next to Ashley and be like, Jesus, I'd be well able for this. And she'd start laughing at me, like, right? She's right. But I do love, I love the concept of it. I love seeing people being pushed to the limits, right?
Yeah.
But coming up to season 3, which you were on, you get the phone call to kind of come in and be part of the show. And then I presume you're kind of told, well, look, we want you to come in to work with the contestants as a mole, we'll say, and then you have to do the bits of the training. How did you find that whole experience?
I found it good. I found it interesting, to be honest with you. So the initial phone call was listen, we're looking to do an undercover, a mole. So would you be interested? And I said, yeah, straight away. And again, I don't know whether there was a bit of purpose involved in that or what. I don't know. Like, I had retired at the time, and I genuinely actually was in the post office at the time.
Okay,
right? I've done about 3 months as a postman. Okay, I did. It just happened to be a good cover story at the same time, And so I think when it came, like I said, I had been out of teams for probably a year at that stage, and left the army, is in the job, and I don't know whether it was a challenge. I don't know whether I wanted to prove something for myself, to be honest with you. And I think, maybe just a case of, let's see if I still have it, kind of a thing. So I goes, straight away, 100%. So I come back and I tell the missus, and she's like, oh, really? She goes, she's all super excited and everything.
And,
So eventually, like a week later, anyway, we ended up having to meet the producer, and Ray at the time came up to the house, you know. But I remember from when I said yes and to when I met the two guys, there was about maybe a week's time there.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the sitting room here at the house.
Yeah.
We had three dogs, so I laid the three dogs out for the piss.
Yeah.
About fucking 9:30, 10 o'clock in the night, right?
Yeah.
But open door anyway, and the centre lights come on outside, and it's a shit night now. Okay,
Yeah.
the rain is fucking falling at an angle, trees are blowing, you know, it's just shit. And I remember just standing there looking at it and I said to myself, what the fuck am I doing? No, because you just know, like, you're going to be out in that shit, you
Yeah.
know, dealing with it, like. And this is the difference, right? This when it comes down to when we say the Rangers is 90% mental,
Yeah.
okay, 10% physical.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that that 10% is less important. Because if you can't physically get from A to B, you're not passing the fucking Rangers.
Yeah.
It's very simple, okay? If you can't physically do the test or you cannot physically carry the load that you're asked to carry, you're not passing the Rangers.
Yeah.
But the amount of people I've seen who are more than physically capable, but just have a shit day.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're just not feeling it. They just want to fucking put on the pajamas, you know, have a nice bowl of porridge and a cup of tea and just sit down and binge watch fucking Home and Away. Who knows? Okay.
Yeah.
But they can't. They're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They have us in their face, and they have to do a 14-hour hike over the mountains, right? So there's the mentality part. And when I looked out the window, that's the first part that hit me. I go, right, physically, wasn't in great shape, by the way, but I had about 6 weeks to train.
Yeah.
So I kind of packed a lot in.
Yeah.
But just looking at that shitty night, I'm like, fuck me, like, you know, what am I have to do here? Like, so it was grand. Look, we met the boys. They had a chat about what they wanted. And yeah, I think 6 weeks out in the show, then that's when I started. Just kind of put a 6-week plan together, similar to what I did when I was training for selection myself,
Nice.
just to get back some bit of fitness,
Yeah.
that running with weight, and you know, as we say, getting used, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, kind of a thing, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and then that was it. Went down the night before, watched a bit of behind the scenes, see how things work and stuff.
Yeah.
I was brought through the tunnel area. I was kind of showing the whole setup, the way things are and what way they kind of work and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the night before then, we went for a meal and we had 2 or 3 pints, and sure, the 4 guys were there and slagging me about, you know, beast me tomorrow morning and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that was it, you know.
Yeah, because I remember we were watching it, and it cuts to the scene where you're brought in to meet the lads, and then you all start laughing, and we're like, "What? What?" You know what I mean? It was brilliant. And like, how did you feel like kind of going, you know, having to do all the physical stuff again, or you know, because obviously you had to, you're a contestant, like not a contestant, but like you were in with the contestants for a while.
Yeah.
And how long was it before you told them that, well, lads, I'm actually a DS, you know, we're here to test you, etc., etc., etc. Like, did you get a few days of doing the kind of grunt work, or what was it? Or
Yeah, we did. So we kind of had an agreement. We were going to pull it just the night before they did the foreman half man. So I'm trying to think, maybe that was like 4 days in, so like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think about 4 days in, so it's already a pre-agreed as to when I was going to be exposed, we say, as such. But yeah, like, you know, it was kind of strange in a way, going back to that environment of, you know, being shouted at and leprechaun and all that kind of stuff. But then in another way, I guess, just from the army itself, I just kind of naturally got into the swing of it. Because I'm used to the environment, which is a massive, like, it's a massive upper hand as well, you know. Like, I'm used to that environment. And when I was in there with the guys, I kind of knew what they were going through, because on my course, you know, when you're putting your head down to go sleep, like, you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So you're still anxious, you know, and you're trying to relax the body, and you're trying to, you know, get a good night's sleep. But then you're worried about the next fucking morning. You're worried about what's happening the next day. And that's why, like, on the course, you're trying to tell yourself, right, just stay in the moment you're in. Get the head down. Because whatever's going to happen tomorrow is going to happen. Worrying about it tonight is not. And you need to get sleep.
Yeah.
Whereas I suppose on the show, I wasn't really dealing with that because I'd already gone through it, and I know that, well, no matter what they throw at me, hopefully I should be able to
Yeah.
stick it out and
Yeah.
get through kind of way. Well, I had no choice really, because if I fucking came off of it after being an ex-ranger, that was it.
Yeah.
My fucking pride was gone down the toilet, never again to be spoken to.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely funny, Dennis, right? Like when I was in there, I did mostly feel like a contestant, because you're in that environment,
Yeah.
and you genuinely kind of have to, like, in fairness to the guys, like they are put through the paces, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they are, like, their sleep is really restricted, so you kind of have to buy into the whole situation. You have to buy into that environment, because if you don't, you're not mentally prepared, even
Yeah.
for even a show like that. Like,
Yeah.
you have to, and that's why it's so important, I suppose. Look, even with, you probably know more so, like sports scientists like that. Like, it's about getting the mind focused,
Mm.
you know. And if your mind is in the right place, your body will always follow your mind,
Yeah.
without doubt. So if your mind is in the right place, and you're mentally focused on whatever environment you're in, and you're happy enough to, go through whatever they put in front of you, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
As I said, it was just like the ease for me, because I wasn't stressed about the next morning. I wasn't stressed about that night,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
look, whatever they throw at me, they throw at me.
Yeah.
It was a similar environment. It was an environment I was used to, kind of thing.
Yeah, I must say it was a great watch. And would you go back and do the show again? Obviously, no, not as a contestant, but like as a DS, would you go back and do it again?
Yeah, I would. I would. It was very good. I obviously done something wrong, because no, they fucking quit it after the second one. So, yeah, maybe it's the accent. They couldn't get in the subtitle.
Yeah,
I don't know. But no, look, definitely. Look, it's easy for me to say, okay, I was only part of it 2 years. Now, in fairness to the boys, they put a great show together the 3 years or 4 years previously to that. I think it was a great show, and I honestly think there was another 2, 3, or 4 years there, if they wanted to
definitely,
push it. And
yeah,
I think there was a lot of interest in it. I guess I don't know where they were RTE side. I don't know, like, where the audience was. But it's strange, because I met a lot of people, okay, who since the show said that loved it, best thing RTE had on,
100%,
fantastic. But then
100%.
I've also met other people, and probably more so the slightly older generation, but there was also one or two people where, like, they just don't like watching people being shouted at, and being put through their paces in such a physical and mental demanding state,
Yeah,
I guess. So I don't know. Like I said, look, the majority of the people have spoke to enjoyed it,
yeah,
and they're gone. And I would, like, I mean, if I was asked in the morning, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
yeah.
Um,
It was brilliant. Really loved it. It's funny enough, actually, I was at a talk in a business talk in Middleton, and Ray was actually the guest speaker.
yeah,
So he went through his presentation. It was fantastic. It really was. But the amount of questions between photos at the end, and the amount of questions about the TV show, and people asking, "Will it be back?" It was mental. And
yeah.
I was probably one of them as well. But like, really, really, really good, to be fair. And you're kind of doing the private security now, like, without giving much information away or whatever you can give away. What
Yeah.
what does that look like, or what's involved in that? Is it celebrities? Is it kind of you know what?
It's more businessmen, really,
Okay,
that
yeah,
kind of stuff. But look, it's a lot of time away. There's a lot on your plate, that kind of thing.
yeah,
Obviously, look, you wouldn't say who you are with, and where you're going and
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, yeah, yeah,
Like, it was something. I was in on post for like 3 months. It just didn't suit me.
yeah.
Good job. I would never say to anybody not go there. Just me personally, it wasn't me. And then I was
Yeah,
given this opportunity, by people who I'd worked with before.
brilliant.
I said, yeah, happy days. And there was, initially, there wasn't as much travel supposed to be involved.
Yeah,
But then it just generated and so on and so forth. So yeah, like, there was always there was always a shelf life on that. I had a chat with the missus, and we were talking about the amount of travel I was doing. And
mm,
it wasn't something I'd left the army for.
yeah, yeah,
We were saying, look, let's put a bit of a plan here. Let's maybe give it 12 months and then we'll reassess, see how we get on. And I had done about 2 years. And I think at that stage I said to Mrs. Look, we were doing a few bits and pieces around the house and, you know, a bit of a plan going.
Yeah.
So in the 2 years then I just, you know, just let the people look, happy enough with the job. However, the amount of travel, I just can't commit to it anymore. So
Yeah.
like I said, I still do it, but it's more part-time basis now. You know, it could be every 2 months or so, you might get a phone call. Look, you know, this job is available. How you fixed? Yeah or nay? Yeah, and if it suits me, you know, I'll take it and do the bit of work. And if it doesn't, then it'll probably just be you know, sent to someone else or see if someone else will take it up, kind of stuff.
And do you find, right, or how do you find? So like you're highly trained, highly skilled, right? Hyper aware because that's your job. Is that hard to switch off when you're at home to a restaurant, or are you always kind of like looking where exits are? Has it become a habit? Like, how do you, I suppose, instead of being constantly maybe at a 6 or sorry, constantly at an 8 or 9, how do you bring that down in your kind of personal life where you don't burn out or where you don't kind of feel overly stressed?
Yeah. Well, look, if you were to talk to my better half now, she'd tell you I have no problem switching off when I'm home. You know,
okay, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm fucking. She'll be waking me up at the hard part. But no, look, out in the job. I mean, yeah, look, you know, you're not a complete robot, you know. But again, it just comes back to it's your job. It's, you know, if I make a boo boo, okay, if I fuck up, like it doesn't just rely on me, it relies on a team, because there's a team on this, okay, and it comes back to the team leader, so on and so forth. So like, to me, I'm not gonna say it's simple, but to me it just comes back to the fact that, like, it's my job. My job is to know the location, know the area, the hotel, the restaurant, know the exit points. You know, in a report, give as much information as you can, and it's something that's expected. Like, it comes back to your army training. I know that probably sounds like something out of fucking Killing the Scully, you know. But, like, you know, in the army, you're given a task, okay, and then you complete that task. Now, if that task is not up to standards, well, then you will get corrective punishment, or sorry, corrective actions, as we would say. It could be 20 push-ups, it could be fucking run a lap of the Cork Square, okay. But like, what they were teaching is that there's a standard, okay. You perform to that standard, and that's simple. You have no real reason not to perform to the standard unless it's you. And that comes back to your self-discipline and your self-accountability. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's class.
Why can't I do my recce's properly? Well, there's nothing really there. I might just spend an extra half an hour in the coffee shop or something. That kind of way. So get out, do your recce's in bits and pieces. So I don't think it's any like I don't think there's any really mad science or sports science behind it. It's just a case of your job is to go out, your job is to do your recce's, know your routes, get your information, and you're given the time to do it. But just do the job to the standard at which it has to be done. And that's it. Like, and that's from, like, that's the first thing I taught, I say, in army training was discipline, structure, and accountability. Now, like I said, when it came to my ranger training, because I didn't have NCOs there, because there was a 2-year spell where everything slipped on me. I had no NCOs disciplining me. I had no NCOs, you know, holding me accountable. So that's when I learned in my own head that, okay, I need to bring in self-discipline and self-accountability. And that brings in your structure, and that brings in your progress. And it's the same with jobs. You know, your discipline is to, well, get the early flight, get out to your location, get your shit sorted, get your recce's done, fill in your report, get the information you fucking need. You know, if you're out for an extra 4 or 5 hours doing it, do that. You know, you have your shit together. So the next day when you get up, you have all the information that you need. It makes your job easier. And it's just part of what I've done the whole time, I guess, really.
I have one more question before we move on to our quick fire questions. So we're nearly done. Why or how, I suppose, looking at yourself, and I would say the other DSs would say from the Hell Week TV show, right? How haven't, or maybe they did, but like, in terms of bring the army bringing you back to be instructors to maybe to train the next generation of Rangers, like, is that something that I suppose was ever kind of broached with cheese? Is something that's done? Like, surely in terms of yourself and the cost of training into you over your full army career, that surely the army can benefit from bringing you back to say, and obviously it's a choice for you, but like, surely you can benefit from bringing you back with the experience you have, the knowledge you have, the level of training you've been at. to help the next generation of Rangers. Is that something that was ever done, or is that something, you know, was ever asked to be, or is that something they kind of go, no budget or whatever it may be?
Well, you know, Dennis, I genuinely do think it's a good question, right? Because when I was in there, we were discussing it. And like I know from the training of the current Ranger, okay, you're talking about the course itself is maybe 9 months long. Now, you have the preparation, the planning of that course. So there's probably the bones of an entire year would go into an actual selection course, you know?
Yeah.
And I know there was talks of, you know, would it be possible to bring him back ex-Rangers and instruct them? Now, to be honest with you, I'm not going to dig deep into it because it's not that I don't want to give information, but I really don't know if it ever really went into an official plan.
Yeah.
Or is it a case of like to bring back civilians into a military environment as instructing? Would there have to be other steps put in place? I don't think it would be a simple case of just bringing back in civvies. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think in the army, then it's a case of like I think the army is potentially struggling a bit at the moment. Okay.
Yeah.
I've no official data on this. But I think it's probably struggling a little bit at the moment. So if you have guys in other units, guys who have stepped out from the Ranger wing, and they're now going into other units, whether it be for, you know, career courses or just a change, there's a pretty good chance that they're pretty decent bods. Okay, they're very good steps. So if other units are slightly under strength when it comes to their home units, like if to ask them to send back ex-Rangers to help out the Rangering and training, it's probably not something that they really want to do because, like I said, they're giving back a really good bod. Or you have potentially a sergeant or a corporal after leaving the Rangering to now take up a sergeant or even a higher rank within another unit.
Yeah.
So to take back that rank leaves probably a pretty decent hole in other units or other places, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something that would ever happen. But I definitely think it's probably something worth looking at. Now, again, then how long are you gone? So I'm gone 2 or 3 years. Am I potential to, you know, to go back? Maybe. But if those guys gone 10 years, like skills and drills have evolved.
Yeah.
So it could be a case of, well, if they come back in, one, are they interested? Two, we now have to reskill these people.
Yes, okay.
Like even me, I'm probably out of date with probably some of the skills, and when it comes to the close quarter shooting and the hostage rescue and stuff, I'm probably slightly out of date with that. So if I went back in, I'd probably end up having to be reskilled, you know, and then get your hands back on a weapon and everything else. It's like riding a bike, you get there, but it takes a bit of time, it takes a bit of skill, a bit of training, a bit of practice. Like, so would it even pay off in the long run? I don't know. But like I said, it was mentioned when I was in there as an idea or a possibility, but I don't know if it ever really got pushed up the chain or.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And we're coming to the end there, so just 5 quick fire questions and we're done and dusted. So what's the most valuable piece of advice you've been given?
Oh, Jesus. Actually, I'm going to give this one probably to Ray when he says, don't let your reaction be your response. Okay. Right? I have to say, I like that one from Ray. So thumbs up to him on that one.
Yeah, we'll tag him in this for that. Are regrets something you dwell on, or do you believe in learning from every experience regardless of the outcome?
Probably a bit of both. I try to look at it more of a learning curve than a dwelling on, but younger years I would definitely dwell on them a lot more.
Brilliant. Can you share a pivotal moment where you ever overcame self-doubt and fear and how you navigated through it?
Self-doubt and fear. I suppose, right, the fear would be a parachute jump. We did a night jump one time. Might not be scary to some people, but for me now, my butt cheeks were fairly clenched, I can tell you. We did the parachute jump. It was middle of the night, and it was a non-lit drop zone. So I jump out and come under canopy, and pure cloud base, can't see anything. So you're following your GPS, like.
Yeah.
My GPS is tracking me, and also my GPS shoots off to the left. I'm like, okay, this is strange. So I obviously turn my canopy and I'm heading to the left.
Yeah.
You can't see a thing. Next to me, my GPS shoots off to the right. I'm like, this is fucking what's happening here. So I know going right.
Yeah.
Literally just follow up the GPS, it straightens up again, and this my GPS just fucking shoots off again. And I said, right, I'm fucked. This GPS is just bullshit, like. So I'm now traveling pitch dark, on the drop zone, and I'm in cloud, right, in the pitch dark, and I actually haven't a fucking notion where I am. So it comes back to your training, and I think, right, I need to keep calm here, think of your training. So I'm going through my drills anyway. And I eventually come out of this cloud, and I look around, and all I can see is darkness. I haven't a notion where I am.
Yeah.
Don't know, know nothing. So I just look down this dark spot, and I'm going, right, I have to pick it. No, because your training is you pick a drop zone, whatever it is, within 1,000 feet, because that's you have to make a decision. Simple as.
Yeah.
And so I picked the spot anyway, and I tried to line up, and I come into it. And as I'm coming in, I go to my left, and I see this big power station. I'm like, oh, holy fuck, where are the wires going along here now?
Oh,
so I look at the ditch in front of me, and I'm like, I can either try and pull my canopy in such a way that I land before the ditch, or I pull them in a way that I slightly glide over the ditch. So I took the chances and I slightly glide over the ditch. And just as I'm coming over the top of the ditch, the lines are about 6 feet below me, like.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I just land inside the field. Yeah. So I suppose for me, that's probably the scariest parachute jump I had, where I literally had no idea where I was. I just had to rely on my drills, and look, everything went well at the end. So
Jesus,
thank God for SOPs.
That's mad. And when you're faced with tough decisions, what guiding principles or mantras do you kind of use to stay grounded or make the right choice?
I don't know if I'm a big fan of mantras. I'm not going to say they don't work.
Yeah.
For me, I don't. I guess in the army, you just come back to army. You just need to make a decision. Like weigh up the ways and the pros and the cons, and make a decision and go with it. Like I suppose our trainer was, any decision is better than nothing. So some sort of action is better than no action. You know. So weigh up the pros and cons, see what suits best, and then make a decision and keep the fingers crossed.
Brilliant. And last one, how do you define success, and what steps do you take to stay motivated and focused amongst challenges?
How do you define success? Jesus, right. Should have studied these ones.
I only made these this morning. Apologies.
No, it's all good. How do you define success? So look, success is different for everybody. Success for me is once you don't stop moving forward.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. Brilliant. Once you don't give up, that's success. Yeah. If you reach the goal you wanted, that's perfect. If you don't, okay, look at it, learn from it, and keep moving on. But success for me is just keep moving forward. Okay. How do you get there? Again, like I said, I go back to doing the little things right. The big things will follow. Self-discipline brings structure. Structure brings progress. And self-accountability holds all three together.
And do you know what? I think that's an absolute fantastic way to finish. Philip, thanks so much for your time, my friend. This has been brilliant. I've taken loads of it myself. I know individuals who listen to it, whether it be athletes or in business or whatever their setting is. So thanks so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your story. It was really, really brilliant.
Yeah, Dennis, it's great to chat to you, man. Thanks very much. Probably wasn't as uncomfortable as I thought it was going to be.
I know.
No, genuinely.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. Big time.
No bother, buddy.